College football nerds here to talk a little bit about what to expect with Mac Jones running the offense instead of Tua Tagovailoa in this Alabama RPO scheme run by old Sark. And I want to remind everybody, if you haven't already, please subscribe, please like, do all that good stuff. We got a podcast version out. If you want to hear us on iTunes or Android, check it out. Obviously, we've done a lot of other videos this week. And if you're watching this after week 13, then we've done some other videos too. All right, Josh, there's been so much talk about Tua, about this injury. I don't really want to belabor that point anymore. I want to talk about what Mac Jones brings to the table, what Alabama fans can expect, and maybe a little bit about how this matchup would work against Auburn. I don't want to preview the Auburn game, but the initial reaction is, Tua's down, Alabama's screwed, but I think people would be surprised to know that in this offense, so maybe not NFL draft day, but in their offense, Mac Jones has a solid argument for probably the third best quarterback in the SEC. What do you think?
I think it's probably a decent argument. I wouldn't say third. I'd probably say maybe fourth. I think Fromm's still a good quarterback, even though their offense can't get their act together. I don't think that's been Fromm's fault.
But that's the thing. In that offense, look, so taking Alabama's defensive struggles that they're going to have against Auburn off the table because they have so many injuries, I have more confidence in this Alabama offense with Mac Jones scoring more than 21 points on Auburn's defense than what we actually saw with Georgia and how inept they were with Fromm. What do you think?
No, I'd agree with that. I mean, the whole trick is it's not just the quarterback. It's the quarterback, the offensive line, and the running backs and the receivers. Jones is a competent quarterback, and he came in, I think, we all got flagged when the Tua went down in the Tennessee game, and Jones was clearly rattled. But the next week he comes in against Arkansas. He's 18 of 22, 235 yards. That's 82% passing at 10.7 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Arkansas is a dumpster fire. There's no doubt about that. Their defense is a dumpster fire. But the point being, is Tua going to put up better numbers than that? It's hard to do.
Right.
I mean, 11 yards per attempt is pretty crazy. Now Tua's put up 10.5 yards per attempt in a lot of games. He put up 14 in the Mississippi State game before he went down. But Tua has been extremely effective. So to your point, if you want to say I wouldn't say he's the third best quarterback. I might actually go as far, though, to say he might actually be. I think he and Trask are not all that far apart from what little I've seen of Jones. But in terms of overall passing game, I think Alabama's probably still, you said third. I would say Alabama's passing game is still going to be the second best passing team in the conference. It's a step further back from LSU, who was a huge gap with everybody else. But their overall passing game with the receivers and everything else, and just Jones can still operate those RPO concepts. It helps the fact that they actually have a fully healthy quarterback. Their passing game is still going to be the second best unit in the conference. It's just the problem, and I think you'll see this, you'd agree with it. It's not that their passing game isn't going to be really, really good, because it is going to be. Are they the top offense in the country, or at least competition for it? Because that's kind of where they needed to be to compensate for the defense as a playoff contender.
Yeah, that's the issue, and I think people are maybe conflating some of the concerns. I'm looking up something right now, sorry. Conflating some of the concerns of the defense and projecting that on what they have offensively. So in a normal situation with a normal Alabama defense, you think about how many championships or how many 11, 12-win seasons Alabama's had in the past with these elite defenses and okay quarterback play. They have better quarterback play than they've gotten in Mac Jones. They have better quarterback and a better passing game than they've had on some championship teams. The problem is they don't have that championship defense. And so that's what I think Alabama fans are a little worried about. Also, I think Alabama fans right now are clamoring for baby Tua. Taliah is a true freshman, has shown a lot of the spark. And I think that Mac Jones feels a little boring. Coming in after Tua obviously feels boring. But talk a little bit about how maybe some of that is being glossed over by the fact that when he came in, start in the middle of the game versus Tennessee. His other one, he came in versus Mississippi State after Tua went down. They only had 4 second-half possessions, or really 4 possessions in that game after Tua went down in the second quarter. So I don't know that we've seen the whole game with Mac Jones.
So I think the first thing to say about Taulia Tagovailoa is that anybody that's saying that he should play, I think, is a little crazy. He's thrown 9 passes. He was 7 of 9. He's playing as the third-string guy. He's playing against backups and third-stringers. The problem is when you play against backups and third-string defenses, they can't run sophisticated defensive concepts. And whether or not Taliah is or is not the better quarterback than Mac Jones, because I don't think we have enough of a picture of that. The problem a lot of times for quarterbacks is, do they know the playbook well enough to operate it, 1? And 2, do they know defensive coverages well enough to read it? And I don't know how many times we've seen quarterbacks come in that had otherworldly numbers against backups. I mean, Brantley was a great example at Florida. He replaced Tebow. He had awesome passing numbers, better than Tebow's when he was a backup. Then he plays against starting offenses that can actually mix coverage up and then bring blitzes from different angles, and he's totally overwhelmed. That's the problem when you have a freshman quarterback, is that he may well throw really stupid interceptions if he's thrown concepts that he's not used to. Playing as a backup, you don't see those concepts because the other team's backups don't know them either on defense, and so everything's pretty straightforward. So I think that's kind of the biggest misconception. And I do think Mac Jones probably doesn't get enough love. Again, he was extremely effective against Arkansas. He came in really, really rough. His eyes were saucers. He's skipping the ball off the ground. That's clearly a nerves thing. Arkansas, he was a little slow too. And then when he got warmed up, I mean, he hit a gorgeous bomb to Judy late in the game that blew it open and he shut down. Even the Mississippi State game, I mean, the first drive he was in, they kick a field goal. I think that was actually the drive where Ruggs got knocked out with a rib injury. And in the second drive, looking at the drive start, it starts with a 3-yard run. Then Jones hits an 18-yard pass. Then he hits a 46-yard pass to Devontae Smith that was called back for that illegal motion. They complete a pass to Smith, and then Brian Robinson drops a ball thrown by Mac Jones, and they have to punt. So those first 2 drives, I mean, he drives them down to score in the first drive, and then they have an injury to one of their receivers. The second drive, he gets them down the field. He has a scoring play or a long play, right, that's brought back due to penalty. Gets them back in position to convert, and it don't convert for a reason that's nothing to do with him. After that point, they never really tried to throw again. So we don't really know what we have with Mac Jones, but I think it's entirely possible that we have a pretty good passer. He's the issue again, though, is he's not going to be Tua Tagovailoa. He's not going to have 14 yards per attempt. But honestly, the difference between where Tua was maybe in like the early part of the LSU game, which is not good enough to beat LSU, mind you, but was still a pretty good offense at 70%. I'm not sure that Mac's really worse than that. And I think that Alabama is still absolutely a top 10 team with a very good offense. Again, though, the issue is, can Alabama compensate for the fact that, for like in the Auburn game, they may be out their entire starting defense?
So one of the things I want to talk about is what Alabama fans can expect, and maybe opposing fans can expect with Mac Jones in the game from a scheme standpoint. And I'm not much of an insider. I don't know that many people that matter, but I do know somebody that knows somebody that mentioned that Sark said, this is from Sark, that Mac Jones picked up the offense faster than anybody else. Any of the other quarterbacks, including Tua, picked up Sark's version of the offense, and which is a big deal. But also, when people think about Alabama running an RPO scheme, a lot of people think RPO means running quarterback, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It's more about observing second-level defenders and knowing whether to pull it and throw it or give it to the running back. So I want you to talk a little bit about that, because I think people are like, okay, we're going from a mobile quarterback to a statue and we run an RPO scheme, so that means we're kind of screwed. Maybe talk about how that's not necessarily the case.
So I think the difference you'll see is a lot like what we've seen from maybe Minnesota in their passing game. Minnesota does an RPO where you see if the second level defenders or the safeties are biting, and you run the ball traditionally, or you throw over the top, you throw to the sidelines up, or you throw down the field. With Tua, they were throwing a lot of shorter stuff because he could read it and get the ball out so quick. They would throw the ball to the guy 6 yards down the field, but they were hitting a guy that was going to be open past that. And they'd have these 60-yard, 80-yard touchdown passes thrown 7 yards in the air. And it was easy to say, oh, he only threw it 7 yards. But that missed just how much Tua's release and accuracy mattered because a guy could catch it in stride right out of the break and before the defense even had time to react to the play. I think Mac Jones is going to be much more slow developing. It's going to be more throwing the ball at the 20 to 40-yard mark on those RPOs. And it's more of a deep play offense, but probably without more deep plays because it's just the ball gets delivered further downfield. Ironically, compared to Tua, because it's easier. If you throw it 5 yards downfield, you get a 5-yard completion minimum. You don't really want to be throwing it 30 yards downfield because it's more of a question mark. I think that's where Mac Jones is going to have to be, but that's probably what they're going to be. And Sark loves to throw seam routes and vertical routes. He loves to throw it deep downfield a lot. And Jones is a pretty accurate deep ball passer. I think it's really the short passing game that's going to go away a little bit because I don't think he gets the ball out as quickly or accurately like in the screen game where Tua is just, he makes all that stuff sort of seem seamless because of his accuracy. They'll probably be a little more reliant on the traditional run in the short game and then just, more like a traditional offense, stretch the field vertically by throwing it down the field. And that's where they're going to try to make their hay.
All right, so you kind of gave away my final thought on this, and I'll turn it over to you in a second. But I do think these coaches know that Mac Jones ain't Tua. So the short passing game, I think, is still there. He's done a little bit in the slant game, but I think we're going to see them call a few more deep shots for him, a few more 20, 30, 40-yard passes down the field for him to try to steal some yards because here's where – on one side, I think he's a completely competent passer. I think this is still going to be a very dangerous offense. On the other side, and you can agree or disagree and then kind of get into your final point, but on the other side, I think what we're going to see in this offense is not as many conversions on 3rd and 10, 3rd and 8, where Alabama still felt truly comfortable on 3rd and 8, just like they did on 3rd and 3 with Tua back there. I don't think they have that with Mac Jones, which means I don't think they have as many extended drives where you just can't get them off the field, and they're going to have to score more in a chunk variety. Let me know if you think that that's going to kind of come into play here and also kind of your final point.
I think probably so. Obviously, when you have a quarterback that's newer, you try to give them 3rd and manageable, but I think it's also going to be a function of the offense. The RPO sort of has a problem where if you do the RPO and you choose to throw it, you create incompletions, which means you have 2nd and 10s, and then you run the ball and you get 2 yards and it's 3rd and 8. Alabama faced a ton of 3rd and 8s and 3rd and 10s with Tua, and it's one because they're comfortable with it, and two, it was a function of the fact they were using the RPO. But those two went hand in hand. They could do the RPO because they were okay being in 3rd and 10. I think they're going to be a lot more hesitant to do that. They're going to want to get 3, 4, or 5 yards, which means probably less RPO runs or passes, more traditional power runs with pulling guys out, and then more play action stuff, throws to the tight end, and trying to make sure that we're getting some consistent yardage and not being in 3rd and long. The final point I'll make, though, with Alabama, I think Alabama with Tua Tagovailoa, if they got healthy, was going to be a playoff contender. But at this point with Mac Jones and with the injuries they have on the defensive line, I think they may actually be in a good position if they don't make the playoff at this point. And I know that's probably heresy to a lot of Alabama fans. One, both of us are kind of a little concerned, more than a little concerned, if their entire starting defensive line, because Ray went out, no prognosis on if the Brian Ray, that was probably their most consistent lineman, is ever going to play this season due to a foot injury. They lose Dale to a knee injury, which I feel like maybe vaguely that he was dealing with at some early point in the season. And they lose Davis to a severe high ankle sprain. They're not going to, be the same defense if they're starting backups across the defensive line in front of true freshman and linebacker. And this defense was already a little shaky to start with. And so the Auburn game is probably going to could be a struggle because Auburn may actually be able to run the ball given all the injuries Alabama has in the front. But moreover, the teams in the playoff are just dominant. And we've already we just did a video with Ohio State and LSU. I mean, Alabama lost to LSU in a close game that you can argue could have gone either way. I think Ohio State's like a touchdown or more better than LSU right now. Clemson might be that good. It's entirely possible, given how shaky Alabama's defense is, that they just weren't going to win the playoff. And even with Tua, I think it was a long shot because of the defensive inconsistency. And you can say, oh yeah, but in LSU, we got a 50-50 shot of beating them again. And oh yeah, if we play Clemson, we're going to be motivated. But you got to play two teams. And you're going to play a really good team in the semis, and you're going to play a really good team in the final if you're the 4 seed. And that's what Alabama is going to face with a depleted defense. And especially right now with Mac Jones, I just don't think they can score enough points to compensate for the fact that they're too depleted defensively. They're going to give up 40 plus to whoever they play, and then they're going to need to score 50 points unlike an Ohio State. I just don't think they can do it with a Mac Jones at quarterback. I think the best thing for them at this point may be to be the 5th or 6th, let somebody else get in the playoff. Because if it's like a Utah, they may well be getting set up to be murdered. Alabama can be a 12-1 team. They can play like a Minnesota, kill Minnesota, get to make the argument that, putting the P5 champion over the one-loss SEC team was a mistake. Alabama was the better team, yada, yada, yada. They've got more of a positive energy coming out of the season, going into the next season, because it's great to make the playoffs, but I think you'd rather win a New Year's Six bowl than go in the playoffs and get run out of the building in the semis. And I'm not sure if that's not what Alabama would be facing if they got in as the 4 seed at this point.
Yeah, and we've seen this before, notably recently with Ohio State teams, 2015, 2017, and 18, where Ohio State fans constantly bring up that they were by far the most talented team in 2015 and would have run everybody out of the playoffs, in spite of the fact that Ohio State lost at home to Michigan State without Connor Cook, and Alabama beat Michigan State with Connor Cook 30-0 on a neutral field. They did the same thing. They got killed by Iowa, lost 2 games, 2017, but they got to play the what-if game. Here we are, 4 years later. Ohio State's going to probably win the national championship this year, but they're still saying 2015 we should have won it. 2017 we would have won it. 2018 we won the Rose Bowl. We should have won it. You can't play the what-if game if you're 2016 Ohio State and you lose 31-0. And it's a lot better for the fans, I think, to say, we should have been in it. And look what happened when, like you said, when you leave the SEC, one-loss team out, which I don't even know that Alabama beats Auburn at this point. But being able to play the what-if game is a lot better than having to know for sure that you had no business being there. So, all right, y'all, that is our little kind of debrief on what you might see with Mac Jones. We will obviously do an Alabama and Auburn preview in a couple of weeks. Mac Jones has a little bit of a tune-up game before that. Let us know in the comments what you think this offense looks like. If it's a huge step back, if you're freaking out, if you're an Alabama fan, let us know in the comments what you think about what Mac Jones brings to the table, and if Alabama can beat Auburn without Tua. Thanks so much, y'all. Have a great week. God bless.